Peace. What's good? How y'all doing? Today is Friday, August 22nd, 2025. I pray this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. This is a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a couple of days now, but I really wanted to be in the right state of mind to talk about it. And I don't want to be. I did the video earlier. It's a couple of videos I kind of wanted to get done today because I need to really like take a day off, you know what I mean, and just reboot and reset myself and just relax, which is seems to be a difficult thing for me to do because I'm so focused on several things that I'm working on right now and really working all the time. Even when I'm not working, I'm working in my mind, right? There's the plight of the self-employed. And when you're in that space in your business where you're trying to like really, break through that bottleneck. But this topic, triggers and anxieties, was, inspired by an experience that I had last week. And I shared this with my book club in my book club meeting this past weekend. And it was interesting because as I told the story, my son sent me a text message at the exact moment that I was talking about him and the impact that he had had on my life as a mother and a motherless child. And so it was just he just sent me the message like at the exact right moment, and it was just like wow, I got emotional because it was like a moment, right? But just a reminder, real quick, I'm speaking live in LA on Saturday, September 13th, 2025. I will post the link for that in the description. I have 2 spots left for climbing the ladder of yourself. And this particular topic that we're going to talk about today is something that I know applies to so many women because so many of you guys reach out to me and tell me what's going on in your life and things that you're struggling with. I've done so many hundreds of consultations over the years and work with clients, so I know this is a thing, which is why I created the whole, focus group concept of climbing the ladder of yourself to try to give you guys access to work with me in a group capacity at a very cost efficient in a very cost efficient way. So I'll post the link for both of those two things in the description. Also, for those of you guys in my membership channel, you guys have access to the um, overcoming anxiety. I forget the exact name. That's sad. I should remember it. But I have a whole workshop that you can, if you're not in my membership channel, you can purchase access to. But it is a copy of my ebook, Practical Steps to Health and Well-Being, a yoga video, a breathwork regimen video, 2 meditations, and a workshop that I did. And I created, it's called Overcoming Anxiety or dealing with the challenges of anxiety. And I created that because anxiety is something that I have dealt with on and off for a long time now. And I don't think, not I don't think, I know I didn't realize the severity of it until over the last couple of years. And so this experience that I had last week was really kind of like, I don't know if I should say a breakthrough moment, but it was a serious revelation for me in terms of the root of the anxiety. So I'm going to share that experience with you guys. And then I have a couple of other things to share, but I'm not going to talk long. So thank you guys for joining me. And you can see, I told you guys I'm growing my hair back out. So if it looks a little mushroomy, that's what it is. You can see in the back here, it's no longer shaved, it's growing out. So I'm gonna be in chia pet mode for a little bit here until I either get some braids or get some twists or something. But it's all good. Sisters, y'all know that if you go from a pixie cut to like trying to grow your hair out, there's like probably a 6-month time frame when it's like, what the hell is going on? But with all of that being said, and a reminder to all of the women as well, I have written and given to the world a workbook, Keys to Womanhood, what every young lady and woman should know. And I have this here because I was just talking to a friend about it. But everything from the chakras to love languages to social media, the masculine and feminine energy, becoming a queen, boys to men, honoring thy temple, mind, body, and soul. This is a full color workbook that I created for young girls, not young girls, young ladies, and women, that deals with some of the topics that we're going to talk about today, as well as all of the things that I wish that a woman it would have told me in my life, in my teens and in my early 20s. So Last week, I had an experience where I got triggered, and the trigger is not even the thing that I want to focus on. What triggered me is not really what I want to focus on because it's much bigger than me. Really what made me like really go into self-analyzing mode is that it was something that should not have triggered me. And because I've been doing so good, I haven't really been feeling stressed. I've been, having my doing things the way I really want to do them, focusing on my work in the way that I want to, making sure I'm on top of my game with my yoga, with my hiking, with my going out and being in nature, like just in a really, really good space consistently. So I haven't been feeling any stress, any strain. And this experience, which again, irritated me, might have been a little irritant. I can I understand why it will be a little irritant, but for it to trigger me to the point where I was feeling anxiety in my chest, it just really, really, really bothered me, right? And so normally I try to do yoga in the early, not the early morning, but before noon, right? And this particular day, I didn't get it done because of whatever. And so by the time the 3, 4, 5 o'clock rolls around, and I'm feeling this extreme pain and tightness in my chest, I said, okay, when all else fails, go to yoga, right? So I did a hardcore 60-minute yoga practice. I'm talking about sweating bullets, like into it the whole time. I'm focused on my breathing. And so I was able to move the pain in my chest out, right? And if you practice yoga, there are certain postures, asanas that you can do, like folding forward. If you're out of breath or you feel stressed or anxiety, do a forward fold and let your arms hang and just focus on breathing, and you'll notice that your breath is flowing a lot more smoothly, and you stop feeling that pain and intensity in your chest, right? So yoga is my go-to. That's why I always talk about it. But so I did the practice 6 minutes, 60 minutes. I got through it. So I felt much better in terms of the energy in my chest. So I'm prepping for Shavasana. I'm, laying down on my mat. I got my eye pillows. I set the vibe. I got my incense going and all of that stuff, the stuff that I normally do. And I've moved the energy out of my chest, but it's still in my head, it's still in my mind, right? And you guys know I'm always talking about the hamster wheel of the world, right? Whether it's debt, whether it's, family trauma, whether it's relationships, this hamster wheel where we find ourselves in these loops, right? Well, there's that part when it comes to dealing with people or experience outside of yourself. But then there's also the hamster wheel of the mind, your own mind, right? And keeping yourself locked in a particular loop that a lot of times we're not even conscientious of. And so I could still, it was still in my mind. I was irritated because, like, why would this trigger me? Why am I so irritated by this? I'm judging and critiquing myself about this. And so a thought within my own mind said to me, what is anxiety really? You know what I mean? Like, what is the feeling? Like, what actually is anxiety? Because again, in my mind, I'm like, what is this? Why am I feeling anxiety? Why am I feeling stressed? I don't have time for this, right? That's the mode I was in. I don't have time for this shit, right? And so when I asked the question, my voice spoke back to me and said, anxiety is when you feel unsafe. And I had never said that to myself. I never had that particular thought, that particular clarity. And so that eased the energy a little bit. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, unsafe. Okay, that makes sense, right? That's the tightness in the chest. That's the gripping. That's the walking on eggshells. That's the like feeling uncertain, fear, doubt, whatever. Um, and I can't even say in this situation that I felt fear because I wasn't feeling fear. I just, you know what I mean? Again, I felt anxiety. And so when I locked in on the word unsafe, I asked myself immediately, because obviously a lot of this stuff ties back to our childhood, right? You know what I mean? Like that follows you into your teenage years, into your young 20s, etc. And it just kind of finds different ways to express. And so I asked myself, well, have I, when I was a child, did I feel unsafe? And I didn't, it wasn't exactly in that language, but it was something to that effect about my childhood and not feeling safe. And when I asked myself that question immediately, I kid y'all not, 10 memory, I say 10 just because it's, boom, 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 like memories just like whoosh, right, in my mind. And it was like 10 memories, maybe like six when I was a child, and then like two when I was a teenager, and then like two when I was a young adult. But they just fired off back to back in my mind, and it like sent shockwaves into my body, right? Because this is not stuff I'm thinking about on a day-to-day basis. This is not stuff I'm thinking about on a year-to-year basis. It might be something that randomly pops up in my mind, but these are not things that I'm constantly mulling over or focusing on, especially not at this point in my life, right? Because I'm so mindful and conscientious of monitoring my thinking, monitoring how I'm feeling, like really tapping in. My self-awareness is a superpower, and because of my upbringing and my life experience, like I really really understand what that means. And then to be around people who lack self-awareness is just like the most obvious, blatantly obvious thing, right? So 10 memories just back to back, boom, 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 where I felt unsafe. And not only did I feel unsafe, but it was also obvious to me. I didn't like think it all the way through, but it was like obviously a part of the experience that there wasn't anybody that was like there to protect me or to support me or to have my back. Right. And so, and I'm not talking about, just for context, you guys, I've never been like, you know, essayed. I've had experiences that were like men, you know what I mean, inappropriately touched me, or you know what I mean. But in terms of the things that women have confided in me in over the years, I think that's why I quantify it that way, because I have talked to and worked with women that have been through extremely traumatizing SA experiences, right? R word. I've never been R worded, right? But I have been, you know what I mean, had experiences even as a girl where where it was like, yeah, no, that wasn't cool, that wasn't right at all. I had an experience recently where a man, you know what I mean, I'm showing up to thinking I'm getting an investor in my book, and he, if it was a corporate type of environment, he could have got sued for SA, right? But it kind of has been par for the course in my life. At 13, 14, I was getting a lot of attention from men. And, so it just kind of has come with the territory. But I'm just saying that to quantify, to give you guys an idea of all these different layers and levels of not feeling safe. And being in environments where people are supposed to be taken care of. As a child, we're all we were all and are all supposed to have access to people that are looking out for our best interest, right? That are making sure that we are not only physically safe, but like mentally and emotionally and spiritually safe. And I had a continuous experience with the women in my family in particular, where like emotional abuse and mental abuse was a real thing, right? And so have these memories just boom, 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 right? And it hit me like a bolt of electricity, right? And immediately I just started crying. I'm still in Shavasana. I'm still laying on my back. I still got the pillow on my eyes. And so the tears are being soaked up by the pillows in my eyes. So I'm not, distracted where I got to get up and get tissue or anything. So I'm allowing myself to just lay there and just sort of stepping outside of myself and analyzing and assessing myself, right? This is why I say my self-awareness is a serious superpower. Even as a child, I've been very able to, instead of projecting on other people or blaming, even when blame is due, right? I always first look within, right? So I'm crying and the tears are just flowing, right? Because it's like, damn, the question was difficult enough, but the answer, right? And so I'm saying all of this to say the experience that I had going back to the thing that triggered me was not something that would make me feel unsafe. Nobody disrespected me. There wasn't, no loud noises or anything, or somebody threatening me. It was nothing like that. It brought me back to the time and experiences where in my life as a child, and even again throughout my life, because I was carrying this, I call it radiating the void, right? And so since I'm carrying this energy, this energetic baggage, it made me kind of walk on eggshells in life, right? I have to be mindful of how other people are thinking and feeling. I have to be mindful of other people's, you know, innuendos and nuances, right? Facial expressions, body languages. I learned how to pick up and read a lot of this, pick up on and read people in a serious way, probably like 10, right? And so, um, and then one of the experiences was three of the experiences was, I can always talk about how I grew up in crack cocaine in Oakland when it was like just completely decimated by crack cocaine, right? And so I had experiences with my auntie. She was an addict at one point. She put me and my cousins in harm's way. My sister was physically fighting with her boyfriend and he or her husband at the time, and he, you know what I mean? I pulled a knife on him because it was the type of, I'm 11, pulling a knife on my brother-in-law. Like it was that serious. Um, my auntie left us, me and anyway, I don't want to get into all of the specifics, right? Because that's not the point I want to make. And I feel like maybe I told you guys some of this before, maybe just my membership channel, but the triggering thing didn't make me feel unsafe, but it did put me in a position where I was walking on eggshells, right? And I'm not going to get too much into the specific thing, but I understood why that experience put me in a state of mind of walking on eggshells, right? And so it's not that I felt unsafe, but it took me into a space where I felt that walking on eggshells type of energy. Like I'm not in control of my environment. I'm not in control of circumstances around me, right? So the walking on eggshells energy or frequency triggered the unsafe frequency, right? And I had never put it together in that order like that. Normally I go into, because I had to parent myself as in my youth and throughout all of my life. And so I've had to be the disciplinarian as well as, I took on a lot of the masculine attributes of parenting because you grew up in the hood. First of all, you're a woman, young girl, then a woman. Second of all, you're attractive girl and then attractive young woman, right? That makes you prey. People prey on that. Not only do men prey on that, but women prey on that too. I have had a lot of women energetically and emotionally prey on me, not just in my family, but when I was a young girl and coming up. This is why one of the reasons why I wrote this book. You know what I mean? Because women were consistently like mishandling me and mistreating me, and I didn't have the language and the wherewithal to be able to contextualize it. I just was like, okay, chin up, chest out. You know what I mean? I got to walk on eggshells in this situation because I don't know the specific about this situation. So let me just focus on myself, right? So, but I'm saying all of this because the order of things brought me to that revelation. And going back to the point about parenting and having to parent myself and being strong in the masculine energy, and the thing that I've had to surrender to, particularly in the last 2 years, is learning how to parent myself, but from the matriarchal, feminine uh, uh, perspective, which is kindness, which is compassion, which is listening, which is nurturing, which is loving. It's not crack the whip. It's not chin up, chest out, right? It's not do what you got to do. It's not any of that. And I've been operating in the world from that space. You know what I mean? And so as a, full grown woman now in the world, I remember having a conversation, and I may have told you guys this, where I was like kind of falling apart and I couldn't get a grip. And like nothing I'm doing is working. And I feel like I'm just, like I'm not making any progress whatsoever. And I heard myself say to myself, because I was like, I was very, emotional, like falling apart. And I couldn't get my footing. I couldn't like figure it out. And that's not normal for me. You know what I mean? Like it might be a day or two or whatever, but like eventually I feel like, okay, I'm getting my rhythm back or whatever. And so I said to myself, we don't have time for this. We got too much important shit to work on again, that's the masculine energy. And mind you, that's not even healthy masculine energy, but it is the energy that will help you to get up and go to work and put your shoes on and get out the door and get out the bed, and you know what I mean? Make sure the bills are paid, like all of that. The way that a lot of us are operating in the world, not just women, right? But I heard myself say to myself, we don't have time for this shit. You need to get it together. We got way more important shit to deal with. This is like when I'm in the thick of one of the stages where I'm in the thick of the ancient people, all of the there's been so many stages and changes and reformations that I've had to do with this book. God, this book has stretched me out beyond anything you guys can imagine. Eventually, I'm gonna tell you guys a story, but um, and when I said that to myself, another voice inside me shot back and was like, "Don't talk to her like that." You know what I mean? Like, why would you say that to yourself? Why would you talk to yourself? Why am I handling myself this way? Right? And so that feminine energy, that motherly energy that I never received from my mother and that I never received from any of the women that were in my family, right? They made sure I had a roof over my head and got to school every day and all that type of stuff, the basics, right? Um, yeah, learning how to now reparent myself as a 40 mid 40-year-old woman, right, who has been like I've been 20 plus years very intentionally working on myself. Really more than 20 years. Honestly, it's been like 25 years. And even, I'm thinking about my diet. I've been, vegetarian for I went vegetarian like probably how old am I now? More than 25 years ago. I went vegan, probably about 15 years ago at this point, maybe give or take a couple of years. And then in terms of like the self-awareness, self-accountability, I've always had that focal point, always having to like figure things out on my own, no matter what, it has to get done. And just really taking care of myself in the best way that I knew how, right? So in the last 2 years, I've realized that there are attributes and aspects of myself that I have not been taken care of. And so now having to pivot and reparent myself the way that I parented my son and the way that I parent my son now was the hardest thing in the world. I had no blueprint. I had no guidance. You know what I mean? I had no where to focus. I've seen people, I got friends that come from healthy families, or I've seen healthy relationships and whatnot. But in, the way that like sort of building I've been a blank slate. That was the beautiful thing about my life, and is the beautiful thing about my life is that I was a blank canvas, and life is what painted my experience, right? So even though I've had, dysfunctional things happen in my upbringing and whatnot in my family situation, I also didn't really have anybody like micromanaging my life or forcing me. Nobody forced me to study certain things in school. Nobody forced me to, to pick a certain career path or to follow in their footsteps. A lot of the issues that a lot of people have, most people have, come from their parents. My direct issues didn't come from my parents. My Later on, those things sort of unfolded. But as a teenager and as a 20 something year old woman, I wasn't like traumatized because my father was emotionally abusive or because my mother didn't give me enough lap time, or my experiences came from my sister and my aunties and my uncles and whatnot, so they weren't really my parents. So I kind of always was like, yeah, I'm gonna take the best part and leave the rest of that shit. You technically ain't even savvy enough to parent me. Like the grown-ups I grew around didn't have the bandwidth to parent me. My mother didn't have the bandwidth to parent me. I know that now. That's why she kind of got removed out of my life instantly when I was born, right? So having to stop, and with all of the knowledge, with all of the books I've read, with all of the self-awareness, with all of the yoga, with all of the meditation, with all of the fasting, with all of the talking to people all over the world and helping people all over the world, I hit a brick wall hard. And I didn't have any kind of template, any kind of map, any kind of guideline. to be able to see myself through it. And it was the hardest shit ever. I kid you guys not. So fast forward to last week in this experience, and immediately as I'm observing myself in this space, this time I immediately went into feminine, motherly, matriarchal, nurturing, kind, compassionate, gentle, loving words and energy and language to myself. And so I'm saying all of that to say, because it wasn't like a one day learning experience, right? I'm still kind of processing and meditating on it, but it took me like 3 days to like really kind of, work through that and observe and, you know what I mean? Like pull the wisdom and whatnot from that experience. And so I'm saying all of that to say the triggering aspect, because a lot of us are out here getting triggered, right? There's a lot of very anti-female content online. So for women who have been through domestic violence situations, through SA trauma, through, not having a father figure. My father was the most active parent in my life until he had his son when I was like 13, and then he kind of like dipped out on me a little bit, not a little bit, a lot energetically. But from preschool up until that point, maybe up until like 11 or 12, maybe up until like 11, actually. There was some stuff that happened. But my dad always was like, I know you're going to be good. I know you're going to be strong. You're highly intelligent. You're good. Go out into the world and make greatness. He didn't say that, but that's definitely how he handled me. And so I had to make a lot of grown-up choices and decisions. At 14, I had a roommate who was paying my own bills, right? And I wanted my father to intervene and to step in and, to provide a soft landing for me, but he didn't. So I had to do what I had to do. But the whole experience was so powerful for me because it helped me to realize when I feel stress and not strain, when I'm feeling stress or that tightness in my chest, that anxiety that feels like a panic attack, like a heart attack, it's because I feel unsafe. Why am I feeling unsafe? And to start processing and analyzing from that way. And this is something for parents to really understand and watch the way you handle your children, watch the way you talk to your children, watch the energy in your household, slamming doors, you know what I mean? Yelling at your significant or other, yelling at them. I don't know how people call their children N-words. I see Black people online calling their children N-words all the time. I would never. And I do occasionally use the word, you know what I mean? I'm ghetto politics 101, right? I don't use it as a term of endearment though. I use it for a specific reason, but that's not the point. I hear people call their children N-words all the time, and just the way that they talk to them and they handle them is so inappropriate. And I see it online all the time, and it really makes me cringe. Be careful of the environment and the company you keep and the energy that you project, which is more important than anything. That's why what you tell your children to do versus the way you treat yourself, the way you treat yourself is the most prominent and important lesson, especially for women with children, with daughters, especially for men with sons. The way you treat yourself is the greatest lesson that you are teaching your child. My son is 22 years old at this point, and he is so emotionally intelligent. It blows my mind sometimes, especially because, again, I'm telling you guys what my background was, what my upbringing was. Nobody instilled these things in me. I was a blank canvas, but life instilled these things in me, and God placed angels on my path at different points to help me to get through and to overcome certain things. And my mind, you know what I mean? Like, you guys see me now, but like when I was 13, I was something serious. When I was in high school, I was something serious. When I was in college, I was running laps around my professors. You know what I mean? So the blessing that God has given me in my sensitivity because of my upbringing, my mind, which was just mine from beginning, it was just, it was always there. My compassion and empathy for other people, because I know what it feels like to not be seen. I know what it feels like to not be valued. I know what it feels like to be surrounded by people and to feel completely alone. And I had to learn those lessons and have those experiences so that I could create groups, so that I could create conversations, so that I could create content, so that I could create a platform and a legacy where I help other people to come up out of that type of experience and to not feel that way. And I'm so comfortable now in my own skin. I'm so comfortable in my solitude. I don't need other people to, you know what I mean? To supplement or to buffer where I'm lacking, right? So I don't have to deal with myself. So many of my clients, so many people get married, so many people hang around. Females in particular keep females around them because they don't want to be by themselves, to have friends, to be social butterflies or whatever. Because they don't know how to deal with themselves, how to feel comfortable with themselves. And I'm so comfortable. It scares me sometimes. I say that tongue in cheek because it doesn't really scare me. But this is why I can't settle in a relationship. Because bro, I have to feel excited and invigorated about being around you. Otherwise, what's the point? You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I got options, of course. Friends and plenty of people that I can be around whenever. I don't have to be in solitude, but I enjoy my own company very, very, very much. And it's because I've been around so many people that don't want to do the work. They spend all their time projecting their shit on other people. And it's not just the blame game where it's like argumentative or, sabotaging other people or hurting them or doing things that can be quantified or, sort of, pinpointed. Most of the projection is energetic. This is why I'm so proud of my son, because he first of all, he validates my science. Number one, he 100% confirms my shit works and is real, along with all my other clients who actually do the work, which I can't do it for you. You have to do it yourself. But I was raising my son energetically that whole time. The whole time I was working on myself. The whole time I was striving to be better. The whole time I was being cautious and careful about not only the type of men I brought my son around, or the type of men that I brought around my son, which were very, 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 very few, but more importantly, the type of men that I let in my life. You know what I mean? A lot of women are carrying a lot of energetic and emotional baggage because you are just sloppy with your sex life. You guys really think, and this isn't just for women, this is for all of us. There's no such thing as casual sex. There is a transmutation and an energetic download every time you give your body to somebody. That goes for men and women. I think men think that only, pertains to women because women are being penetrated and you're the penetrator or whatever. You guys know what I mean. But bruh, when you understand how vibration and energy works, you are absolutely 1000% also downloading her energy. And it's not just through the seminal fluids, right? Because the sweat, saliva, right? These are ways that we transmute and transfer fluids. So there's that download, but then there's also the energetic resonance. Is this dude, a good person? Does he have a good heart? Is he emotionally stable? Is he emotionally mature? Does he love himself? And most of the time, if you don't love yourself as a woman, you are absolutely going to attract a man that doesn't love himself or that makes you feel unloved, right? And I have had a pattern of attracting not men or not just men, I'll say. I'm not saying this to be particular about male-female relationships, friendships where I'm constantly giving, I'm constantly pouring, I'm constantly, you know what I mean? And it's not reciprocal. And I invest in the people that I care about. You see how much I invest in my platforms, right? In terms of, anyway, I don't want to get into all of that. But the point is, radiating the void means even if you are conscientious that you have a mother wound, or conscientious that you have a father wound, or conscientious that this man broke your heart, this woman did you wrong. All of these triggers, not triggers, but these experiences that we have, right? We try to move on and push forward. If we don't clear up that energetic residue and get to a point where we understand why we attracted those experiences and get the value and are able to transmute and pull the value and the wisdom from those experiences, we continue to radiate the void. This is why the conversation, Black men in particular in America, and how horrible Black women are, and how they sow this and how they sow that, and I'm going to another country and all this stuff. And this same thing applies to women, but in a different way. But I'm saying this in particular because whatever you attract in America, you're going to attract somewhere else, just in a different format. You know what I mean? You can get a woman who will make sure you have 3 meals a day and, run your bath water at night and is there, physically to make sure that you have the accommodations, right, to make you feel comfortable. That might be cool while you in your 20s, while you in your 30s, depending on how emotionally stable and mature you are as a man. But if you're growing and evolving, eventually you're going to have spiritual and emotional needs that are supposed to be met by a woman. Your mother, first and foremost. A lot of times, if you didn't have that in your mother, then you're going to attract that same thing in a woman, right? I know we live in a time where we think that men are supposed to be the master teachers in the spiritual realm, but that's just not the case. In ancient times, and I don't, you don't have to quote the Bible for me. I've read all the books, right? In terms of the scriptures, I'm very well aware of what they say. I also study nature and study the physical body and study anatomy and study emotional, the auric field, and study emotional resonance and energetic resonance. It's all vibration. On a spiritual level, that male, female, gender aspect only quantifies on a certain level, right? So you get what you are vibrating in life. And that doesn't mean I'm a cheater, so I'm going to attract a cheater. It might mean meaning to whom it may concern, I'm I've never cheated in a relationship before. I'm always, loyal to my partner. Yeah, but are you emotionally pouring into him? Are you spiritually pouring into him? Are you studying and learning his flaws and his faults and learning how to help him navigate those things and evolve beyond those things without stripping his self-esteem or tearing down his confidence because you don't have the tools to do what you are naturally and organically meant to do, supposed to do. And I don't say that like it's a burden. The women of this world look at that type of stuff as a burden. But when you understand the power in how everything is vibration and everything is about energetic resonance, that is one of the most powerful, important jobs that there is. And I know because, again, I just proved my science through my son. And I know that the relationship between a boy and his mother and a woman and her man are not the same thing. But there are aspects of those relationships that are absolutely quantifiable and measurable in the same way that you can tell a lot about a man based on the way he treats his daughter. I used to talk to a guy who had a wonderful relationship with his daughter. I mean, he everything he told me about it and everything she told me about it, because I met her when she was a young woman. They had a great relationship. He was supportive. He was always there. He was her number one cheerleader. And the minute she started turning into a young woman, they started butting heads. He could not relate to her. He didn't know how to talk to her. He didn't know how to emotionally nurture and guide her. And her mother wasn't active in her life, right? So this is an experience where a man needs to step his emotional, energetic resonance up. And if he doesn't know how to, then he needs to learn how to, or figure it out, or he needs to find a woman. And it might be his partner, his wife, his girlfriend, or it might be an auntie, or it might be, you know what I mean? But you got to find a way. This is not something you can ignore because it's going to follow her in her life path. They had a wonderful relationship until she turned into a young woman. And now all of the issues that he had with women, which of course later eventually came out, we never developed a serious relationship. And eventually once I realized I'm not going to be with a man, then I get in my spiritual, you know what I mean? That's what I'm here for. Now I'm not going to say teacher role, but now I posture myself in a different type of way. Like, okay, this is not going to work in that regard. So let me try to add value to your life and be a friend. And you know what I mean? And of course, he wasn't mature enough and stable enough to be able to accept that because it felt like rejection, which is another important lesson. Because here you have a very powerful woman who cares enough about you to be invested, to try to help you try to see the bigger picture here and mend the relationship with your daughter. And you aren't emotionally savvy and stable enough to be able to accept the guidance and the teaching and the wisdom. That's why I always say a man who refuses to learn from a woman is a fool, a woman with nothing to teach him even more so. This is why so many men are stuck in their lust-based frequency. It's not just because the record industry and the television and everything is hitting you at your lower nature. And it's not just because we ignorantly train our sons to be sexually promiscuous, sow your royal oats type vibes. We teach and render our sons and rear our sons with that insanity. And they end up having sex too young and they don't have the emotional capacity to balance it out. So they get addicted to the pleasure of sex, never learn how to get not addicted, but attracted to the benefit of engaging a woman in a healthy emotional capacity. And then they're 30, 40, and 50 years old, still trying to learn the lessons that they should have learned as teenagers or in their early 20s or in their relationship with their mothers or in their relationships that their fathers have with the women that they choose in their lives. My father chose several women that were the worst possible choices he could have made for having a daughter. One of his girlfriends was very jealous of me. She had one daughter a year older and one daughter a year younger than me. And you know what I mean? I've always been shiny and bright and intelligent and confident and all of the things. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be confident in yourself as a woman to be around me. When I was a little girl, when I was a teenager, if you're a woman and you're not confident in yourself, I'm going to trigger you. You know what I mean? And so she was very emotionally and mentally abusive towards me. My father didn't step in and intervene. He had another girlfriend who was addicted to drugs. She ended up leaving me and her son, I was 7 at the time, in a house by herself while she was out doing whatever she was doing for 3 days. CPS ended up coming and picking us up. I went to the next door neighbor's house. We were eating ketchup packets, okay? This was one of the memories that came up. But went to the neighbor's house. She ended up calling Child Protective Service. I'm in foster care for 2 weeks until my dad comes and gets me out. So he ended up, coming to get me. But I'm just saying. So he made choices in women that might have been good for him. Whatever his, she looked good or, the sex or the companionship or whatever. But they were the worst possible choices for a man with a daughter. And I'm saying this to emphasize this to you men and being conscientious about the type of women that you choose and the type of women that you have around your daughters and your sons, right? Because you're showing your sons the type of women that they should be attracted to or the type of women that you find attractive, which obviously is going to impact the type of women that they find attractive. Unless they don't like you, then they might end up being attracted to boys. And yes, that's relative to this conversation. I don't want to get into that because then I'll go into a whole nother bit. Not bit, but a whole nother conversation. So let me share a couple of these things with you guys. Excuse me, real quick. This is a post that I saved. It was a whole slide of different things. I didn't save them all, but I did save a couple of things from this post. The first was neuroscientists see the same thing under MRI. Negative self-talk spikes cortisol, weakens immunity, and accelerates cellular aging. Chronic exposure to hostile language is biologically indistinguishable from chronic toxin exposure. We're talking about what's happening in here. And again, what's happening outside of you, right? That's why I talked about how you are talking and behaving and acting around children in the environment, that's relative. But as adults in particular, what's happening up here? And then this one really hit me because, hold on, let me remove this. Why can't I see myself? Okay, there I am. Okay, so number 4 was, I forget the title of this, but it was basically talking about self-talk, right? The 4th one, modern experiments show insults trigger inflammation even when we hear them from strangers. The body treats verbal attack as physical threat. Ancient healers didn't need lab coats. They saw that shame and slander made people sick. This is why this resonated with me so much, because I can't tell you guys how many times I've been like in a live conversation, right? With, in chats. That's why I don't do a lot of lives, because the chat situation, right? But I'll be in a chat, a conversation with you guys live, and somebody in the chat will just come on and say something super reckless and disrespectful, right? Doesn't happen a lot, especially now because I've moved out of the race-based consciousness and I focus more so on self-awareness, self-accountability. People don't really want to hear about those things. And I do it intentionally because it weeds off certain types of energy and attention for me. But the thing that triggers me in those situations is not so much what the person says. I might react. It's when other people tell me not to respond. And I'm sure you guys that are watching me will remember certain times where, it's just like, what? Somebody is saying something and insulting me, right? And as it says here, triggering inflammation, even when we hear them from strangers. I'm not saying it triggered inflammation, but it definitely triggered a response in my physical body, right? I'm feeling some type of way. It's a verbal attack. It doesn't matter if it's a stranger or not, right? And then the people that are supposed to be on my team are telling me to ignore it. No, I expect the people on my team to draw blood, because I draw blood for my people. And I don't mean that literally, obviously. I mean, if I'm rocking with you and somebody disrespects you in my space, if I'm in a chat room and I'm watching your video and I rock with you, no, I'm not going to be like, ignore that. I'm going at, and I'm not saying I get all involved and invested in all that stuff, because I don't. I'm just making a point about the power and impact of words and how dangerous it is, where we are all becoming neutralized to people just hurling off insults and disrespectful language, and then expecting for people to just be operating in the world like it didn't happen. And then you hear about all these YouTube and social media influencers that are committing suicide. Now, obviously, I didn't grow up in a world with social media, so it doesn't impact me the way it impacts a lot of people. I'm not going to do that. It's not going to affect me to the point where I'm going to like self-harm or anything like that. I might like go into war mode, Daenerys Targaryen, for a minute. But then as soon as I get off the computer, I'm going to go do yoga or take a walk or something. And then people are like 2 weeks later, oh, stop letting people handle you like that. Like, nah, that was like a 5, 10, 15-minute situation. I'm way past that. Don't tell me how to, take care of myself. Don't tell me how to take up for myself. And it's very troubling to me when people have an issue with me taking up for myself. And now maybe because you guys have a little bit more context of my background, right? As well as this point here about insults and triggering and how they can trigger you even from strangers. I don't ever want to be comfortable in a world where a person can just spit in my face or disrespect me or play games with me and then I just become neutral to it. No, I'd rather just create content on my own platform, but I don't have to deal with that. You know what I mean? But I also want to share this video. Where is it? Okay.
Internal compasses we have. When stuff bothers you, when you get triggered, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in society, culture, that is your first indication that something is unresolved or unhealed. Because when it is resolved, in my experience, it doesn't trigger you that way. You pay attention to it, you notice it, but it doesn't dysregulate you. So the first most important thing is don't avoid your triggers. Engage with them. Turn into them. Look at them. Embrace them. Because that is where all the information is. And nobody can heal that for you. Nobody. Look at your triggers. Love them. Because they are pointing you in the direction of your wholeness and your healing. Paige?
So that experience was very informative and valuable for me. And I wanted to share it with you guys because I am evolving and elevating and stretching and being stretched out in ways that I wouldn't have even been able to like contextualize or conceive, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But I know that all of these things are working for my highest and best and greatest good. So I leaned into the experience. I leaned into the conversation in my mind. I leaned into the feminine, nurturing, compassionate energy that I needed in that moment. And I want to really impress upon men and women, everybody listening to me, that this is the time. The shift in energy now is from heavy yang energy, meaning masculine, meaning patriarchal, meaning linear minded, meaning intellectual, meaning technological, meaning digital, right? That's what the danger of so much emphasis being put on AI and technology. There's no soul in AI. There's no soul in technology, and you are a soul having a human experience, right? And so this now is the time where the yin energy, where we are living in a heart-based way, where we are taking care of our emotional selves, where we are focusing on healing, right? And dealing with whatever the unresolved, unhealed trauma or abandonment issues or neglect issues, etc., lack of support, all of those things. We can't just water it down anymore. We can't smoke the pain away or drink the pain away, and it's not, doesn't always present as pain, right? Those are extreme circumstances. A lot of us are operating in the world like on autopilot, not even realizing we have these unresolved things. This was something that came to the surface for me in a moment with the asking myself the right questions. This is why the real divination. Oof. So let me write this down. So you talk about divinations and different spiritual systems, right? Where between Africa and ancient China with the I Ching, right? These different forms of divination. Why can't I see myself? That's weird. Well, because I start talking about divination, the AI is like trying to tap in now. And all right, so damn, what was I saying? Divination. Oh, in the different systems and methodologies of divinations in ancient cultures, right? The answer that you are going to get depends on the question that you ask. And if you ask the question in the wrong spirit, or you ask the question from a lack-based consciousness or an urgent, victim-based consciousness, a lack of love, whatever the energy is that you ask the question from is going to dictate and determine the answer and the response that you get. In the same way, I'm always saying the frequency of the prayer is going to determine the response of the prayer. So if you praying for a man down on bended knee in desperation, no, there's no more good men. What am I going to do? I don't want to be alone. That means you haven't found a way to feel secure and comfortable in yourself. You definitely haven't tapped fully into self-love, right? And you're going to, when your prayer is answered, when you're sending the frequency out in that spirit, that man is going to come back and answer, or that relationship is going to answer that prayer and that calling in a frequency or energetic resonance that matches the energy that the prayer was sent from. I've proven that so many times in my own personal life. That just, so the divination in terms of me being a spiritual entity, a spiritual being, whether it's Yes, the I Ching and the different African cosmology and metaphysics, all that stuff is perfect, beautiful. The Bible, the Quran, all of these different scriptures, but I'm a walking, living, breathing scripture unto myself. The wisdom of God is implanted in every fiber of my being, my physical being, my mental being, my spiritual being, my emotional being. So when I'm feeling anxiety, that means I am out of alignment the way that God sees me. Because I grew up in environments that projected that shit on me. That's their cross to carry, not mine. I'm out of alignment and can't see myself through the right loving, nurturing. You're doing great. You're on the right path. Everything is working out in your favor. The things that I always said to my son, nobody instilled that in me. Right? So I'm walking through life asking the questions while I'm radiating a void and have still been able to produce great things. And will produce even greater things moving forward. But the divination is within. I am the book. I am the scriptures. I am, you say Jesus was the true I'm so out of touch with religion. I mean, I'd say the books, but then the books and the religion is two different things to me. It's relative, but then it's not relative. But the concept of Jesus being the Son of God. I am the Son of God, daughter of God, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, the divination is the questions you ask yourself, the way you talk to yourself. What questions are you asking life right now? What are you commanding life to do right now? Through your prayers, through the way that you talk to yourself, through the way you handle yourself. So I just wanted to share that message with you guys. Hopefully, you know what I mean? Something I said radiates and resonates with you guys. I'm at an hour now. I didn't mean to talk that long, but when I come and have these very vulnerable and intimate conversations with you guys, this is really something that I've maybe in the future probably will, because I know as things continue to get way more chaotic in the world, I'm gonna be having with my private tribe, right? But I also know that I have a responsibility to the collective. And so when I do this content publicly and risk everything that comes with being vulnerable on these platforms to try to speak life into you, to try to help you navigate parenting, to try to help you navigate the struggles of being a woman, the struggles of being a man, the struggles of trying to figure this shit out. And then most of us that are operating in a certain bandwidth of consciousness are doing it alone. We don't have support systems. And even when we have family and people around us, they aren't able to support us in a spiritual capacity. They aren't able to support us in a mental capacity. So I am here being of service and of assistance to you, for you, expecting nothing in return. But I do believe in reciprocity. So Keys to Womanhood is my workbook. I've written 7 books at this point, 4 workbooks, 2 Black Matters books, 1 ancient people history textbook. There's a lot of different ways that you guys can actually support me. I appreciate all of the love that I get in the comments. I get a lot of messages where people are like energetically dumping, right? You telling me your life story, you telling me your struggles, your trials and tribulations and whatnot. So this is my offering in regards to that. You know what I mean? So again, I hope it adds value. And I appreciate you guys for listening and for holding space for me, and just in terms of being able to listen to me and take in what I'm saying and appreciate the value of my message in the same way that I hold space for you guys. Because every time I do these videos, every time I post content, I am here as an individual being holding space for you. All right. ZaZaAli.com is my website. info@ZaZaAli.com is my email address. Yeah. And I will see you beautiful people very soon. Peace and love.